You know, somebody asked me the other day, what's the strangest pickup you've ever worked on? And without a doubt, that has to be the Malmström lap steel pickup that I worked on that was sent to me by my buddy Max over in Finland. And I did a photo essay on that back in the day, and it went something like this.
This is Max. Max is a lucky guy who lives in Finland. He found a pair of old and rare lap steel guitars made by Finnish guitar maker Malmström. The 1950s guitars were in great shape, but both of them had dead pickups. He removed the cover from one of them, and this is what he found inside. Max had really done his homework. He told me that LeRe made the pickups in Finland under the brand name LeRe. Renwall was a resourceful cat, to say the least. You see, in post-war Finland, it was hard to find guitar parts. However, there was no shortage of surplus field radio handsets. Leif understood enough about guitar pickups to know that the tiny coils and the horseshoe magnets from the handsets were not powerful enough to make a good signal. But if he linked enough of them together in series, he would have something. He bent up a small box out of chrome-plated brass, then he would drop in 4 sets of magnets and coils. Next, he filled the cover with beeswax to keep things put. Finally, he soldered on a backplate made out of brass sheet metal. Renwall seemed like the kind of guy I'd like to hang out with sometime. Max wanted to know if I could fix his pickups or make him new ones for his prized guitars. I'd never seen anything like these before in my life, so I asked him to send them to me, and I'd do my best to revive them. So they began their journey from Pori, Finland to my little shop here in Nashville, Tennessee, USA. Some 4,613 miles. The first thing I noticed when I opened the package and set the pickups on my bench was the amount of green corrosion funk growing inside the cover. It seems as ingenious as the LeRe design was, it had one fatal flaw that would eventually undo this brilliant pickup. Max had done nothing to the other pickups, so I'd get a chance to see exactly what was going on inside this thing. The first order of business was to heat it up and get as much of the beeswax out as I could. Then I desoldered and removed the bottom cover. While the basic concept seems to be the same here, there's some small differences with this pickup. The jumper wires between the coils are insulated with yellow rubber tubing. After peeking inside, I decided to run this pickup through my wax pot to melt the rest of the wax and get it out of the way. Once out of the wax pot, it's easier to understand the construction style here. We can also see much more of this wretched green funk. I marked the magnets with a marker so I know which way they went in. Pulling the yellow rubber insulating tubing off of the jumper wires shows further evidence of what ultimately caused these pickups to die. More green, funky corrosion. The funk doesn't have the same stink that the New Orleans funk did, but it's much more colorful. If the rotten jumper connections was the worst of it, then fixing these pickups won't be so hard. I started checking coils, and sure enough, 4 sets were good. I put all the good coil sets back in my wax pot and let them soak for a while. I want to be sure the wax gets as deep into the coils as possible. You see, I was starting to have a suspicion about something, and if I was right, good wax potting was going to be very important. In the morning, I cleaned all the green funk out of the cover and remagnetized the magnets with some rare earth magnets. Then I reassembled the pickup using some shrink tubing and some Gibson-style pickup leads. Then I potted the pickup one more time just for good measure. I was so excited to hear what this little chunk of history sounded like that I installed it in my test guitar without even cleaning the wax off the cover. I banged out a fast MP3 of Play That Funky Music and emailed it to Max, all the while cackling, "It's alive!" Okay, maybe not. After the maniacal laughter had died down, I put the pickup on the shelf to be shipped out. Then I turned my attention to the other coils, the dead coils, all of them laughing at me, taunting me, calling me rude names in Finnish. But I was rubber, and they were just stupid dead pickup coils, and their words could never harm me, because I don't speak Finnish, and I could not understand them. The time had come to show these little suckers who was boss. I took one coil set and tried to press the bobbins off of the magnets. It wouldn't budge, so I went back to the trusty wax pot and let it heat up for an hour or so. After the hot bath, the bobbin slid right off with little effort at all. As I started to remove the red coil paper, my suspicions are confirmed. The corrosion has penetrated all the way through to the solder joints at the other end of the jump wires. But what causes this promote? And how did it penetrate a metal cover, all that wax, and the tape around the coils to attack the solder joints so completely? Well, my friends, it didn't sneak past the wax, it was the wax. Pure natural beeswax can be very acidic and corrode copper and brass. Because of this, it should never be used for potting electronics. My wax concoction is comprised of 80% paraffin and 20% purified beeswax. This is something of an industry standard these days. I made a few attempts to try to solder the joints without rewinding the coils, but that didn't work. They were going to have to be rewound. But what size wire was on the bobbins? How many turns were on the bobbins? Do these jeans make my butt look big? Or was it just all those cheeseburgers I ate? How would we decide? It's time for a trip up the winding spiral staircase to the laboratory at the top of the tower. The thunder rolls and the lightning flashes, and the heavy oak door creaks open to reveal the massive Searcy Stringworks Intel Play microscope. Impressive, yes? It may look like a toy, but this crazy little thing is as handy as a pocket on a shirt, buddy. Its images aren't the best in the world, but for our purposes it'll work just fine. An old friend of mine taught me this trick for figuring out what wire was on some of these old pickups. It's simple, really. Make a slide of known wire sizes, then place the mystery wire alongside them on the slide and have a look under the microscope. Here we see our mystery wire on the left and some 45 gauge wire on the right. 45 looks too small to me. Here we see our mystery wire on the left and some 44 gauge wire on the right. That looks about right. Let's see what 43 wire looks like. Here we see our mystery wire on the left and some 43 gauge wire on the right. 43 is too big. So, it's 44. We've decided on a wire size. I'll wind these coils with 44 gauge wire. Once the old wire is cleaned off the bobbins, I decide to wind in 1,000 turn increments, checking the ohms as I go. Each of these coils should read about 1K ohms, give or take a little bit. Once I have the first one dialed in, the rest should go easily. After some trial and error, I finally settle in on 3,000 turns as the magic number for these coils. Before putting the coil sets back together, I remagnetize the horseshoe magnets, just like I did with the other pickup. The coils slip back on the magnets with ease. Then it was time to start making the junctions. Every set of coils is linked together. Then a jumper wire has to be connected to the open ends. That's 4 solder joints per coil set. Times 4 coil sets is 16 solder joints. Then the sets get soldered together. That's 19 joints. Then the end is connected to the case to ground the thing, and the start is connected to a hot line out. That's 21 solder joints in this one pickup. Man, I better get started. Once all the coil sets have all their jumpers, I tape them up and get ready to start putting things back together. But before I do that, I'd better clean the crud out of these cases. To combat this case of the creeping crud, I turn to an old reliable friend. This is a product that I use to clean the Katrina J base pickups. It's very effective, but one of the qualities that mark a good pickup maker is his ability to keep a secret. I mean, if everybody knew how easy it was to do this pickup stuff, I'd be out of a job. No, my friends, I'm afraid I cannot reveal my secret weapon. Whatever it is, it seems to be making short work of the green funk. Finally, everything's ready to go back together. I install the coil sets and solder up the final 5 connections. I shrink wrap the solder joints to ensure that things don't ground out. Once everything is in place, I break out the 100-watt soldering iron and close the cover back up. I try to work fast so as not to heat up the cover too much and short out the coils. It's hard to hold the cover together while heating it up without burning my fingers. Finally, I just give up and go ahead and burn my fingers. Once it's back together, I check it with a meter to make sure everything's still alive. The meter says it's good to go, so it's off to the wax pot again for the last time before heading back home to Finland. After about an hour in the wax pot, I carefully fish the pickup out and pad off the excess wax with a paper towel. I checked it with a meter again. Everything's still in good shape, so I took the rest of the day off and decided to let the pickup wax set up overnight. I want to go write Max and tell him that the other pickup is done, but something in the back of my head tells me to wait. The next morning, I get up before the sun. It's cold in the shop, and the pale light of dawn casts the work area in an eerie shade of blue reminiscent of an 80s horror film. It was a harbinger of things to come. I polished the pickup and admire my work. I had done well. Even with the setbacks and delays, I had managed to research and tackle the most difficult restoration of my career. I had saved a historic bit of Finnish musical ingenuity. I wonder what old Leaf would say. I bet he would say, "Thank you, kind sir. Thank you for taking the time to revive my creation." Yep, it was a good day. I decided to finalize my notes, so I grabbed the multimeter and checked for DC resistance one more time. Nothing. I checked to be sure the probes are plugged into the meter, and I checked the pickup again. Nothing. I checked to be sure the range is set correctly. Nothing. What the? The truth was becoming obvious. I was going to have to open this pickup back up and see what was going on. I was so focused on the issue I failed to take any pictures at this stage, so I'll just show you this, and one of these. Removing the bottom cover showed nothing strange. I started removing the shrink tubing from the jumper. As I removed the last bit of tuning, the problem literally jumped out at me. It seems that in my haste, I'd made a rudimentary rookie mistake. A bad solder joint. Hey, cut me some slack, will you? There's only 21 solder joints in this sucker. Finally, this little bit of Finnish ingenuity, this tiny monument to improvisation in the face of necessity, was ready to join its brother. Max sent me some pictures of the guitar while he was rebuilding it. Close inspection shows some crude and even primitive construction methods, but step a few feet back and the instrument takes on a sleek and elegant form. I learned a lot on this rebuild. There's a deep tradition of island music in Finland. Cuban and Hawaiian styles were very popular.
So how about that? Island music, who'd have thunk it? Well, till next time.